Welcome back to economics. This is the last video for week 4. So you've only been given that one assignment. So make sure when you turn in your week 4 packets, you have your chapter 9 test and your one homework assignment to turn in. I hope you've all been having a good week. Hope you all been noticing your money a little bit. I recognize it's not just there to have, but there is some interesting things about it. Hopefully you all were able to recognize the special instructions that I gave you for doing that homework assignment. We're going to finish up with Roman numeral 2, the financial market. Roman numeral 2, the financial market. The financial market is no one thing. You can't drive to the financial market like you can to the supermarket. Definition of financial market, we've talked about this in previous chapters, but let's give you a definition now. It is the collection of organizations that assist households in channeling their money to businesses and the government. The financial market includes thrift institutions, insurance companies, investment firms, and finance companies. But also worth noting, the largest participant in the financial market is the commercial banking industry. Speaking of which, letter A, commercial banks. Before we get into its definition, let's tell you where they came from. Commercial banks, modern banking practices began during the Renaissance. Please open your books to page 195. Please read the box entitled Renaissance Banking to yourself. Once you have finished reading that, please unpause the video and we will resume. All right, the definition of commercial banks. Here it is. Banks that function primarily by accepting deposits from customers and making business, mortgage, and consumer loans. Number 1, history of banking in the United States. Some of you may have noticed the additional video that I included between the last one I made and this one. That one goes into the history of the American dollar. I just thought it would be extra information, just interest in case you wanted to know about where our American money comes from. Hey, plus side is it's not me talking, so that's got to be a better thing right there. But that video is just there. It's about 6.5 minutes long in case you're interested in further study. So let's talk about the history of banking in the United States. From 1836 to 1864, this was known as the period of free banking. It was a period where there was no national banking system. Individuals could start private banks simply by meeting minimal requirements to obtain a charter from a state. The result was hundreds of new banks representing states, towns, canal companies, and railroad lines. Each bank could issue its own banknotes, resulting in a multitude of different sizes, colors, denominations of currency. Because these banks were usually financially unsound and counterfeiting occurred, the U.S. government decided to step in. So you see, for a few decades, basically a bank could exist and make its own money. Sounds exciting, sounds interesting, but also sounds confusing and difficult. In 1864, the government passed the National Bank Act. Of course, the National Bank Act was created during the Civil War, in which dealing with money was definitely an issue. The National Bank Act established a system of national banks. That's what you need to write down. It extended the control of the Department of the Treasury, issued a uniform currency, and taxed the currency issued by private banks. The result was that many private banks went broke. The result of all of this was called the dual banking system. In fact, today there are two types of banks: state banks and federal banks. If you look at page 197, it shows you a chart showing us the national banks and the state banks that exist. All right, number 2, dual banking system and regulation. You don't need to write down commercial banks or its definition because we've already done that. So just skip up past that. Don't write that down. Please don't write it down, even though I've told you 5 times. Someone probably wrote it down anyways. But remember, a commercial bank from earlier is banks that function primarily by accepting deposits from customers and making business, mortgage, and consumer loans. Recognizing the importance of banking in the American financial system and desiring to ensure that depositors' funds are safe, the government heavily regulates the commercial banking industry. A charter. Definition of a charter is an authorization for a bank to exist. Both federal and state authorities issue charters. Only about 1/4 of banks receive federal charters, as you saw on page 197. Once a commercial bank receives its charter, it is subject to one of 4 regulatory authorities. First is the Comptroller of the Currency, which supervises and regulates only those banks with national charters. Second is the Federal Reserve Bank, which regulates only those state banks that have chosen to join the Federal Reserve System, FRS. If a state bank does not choose to join the FRS, but desires to be insured, it falls under regulation by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC. Finally, those state banks that are neither members of the FRS nor insured by FDIC are under the supervision of their state's banking authority. Again, figure 10.3 on page 197 shows the distribution of commercial banks in terms of their regulatory status. Number 3, what are the functions of commercial banks? There are actually 3 key general is probably a better term, 3 general functions of commercial banks. First one is accepting and guarding customer deposits. When you put your money into the bank, do you expect your bank to take care of your money, to not lose your money, to make sure that you are insured of that money? Yeah, obviously. They may physically protect deposits, like having strong vaults and hiring guards. They also may ensure the safe use of the funds by making sound investment decisions. When they loan out your money to another business, they will hopefully make wise investments. Instead of, investing in Billy Bob's messed up, going to fail business, Incorporated, they will find a more reliable business to associate with. Another thing that commercial banks do is that they make commercial loans. Banks extend many types of loans, such as loans to business firms for equipment and inventory, real estate loans to people purchasing homes, and loans for automobiles. I remember when I bought my car, I had to get a loan from a bank. That's what they tend to do. As the risk of a borrower's not repaying a loan increases, a bank will increase the interest rate that he must pay. That is why you must have good credit so that the interest rates will stay low. More information on how you can have good credit will be found in a later chapter. Providing miscellaneous services. Banks extend many types of loans, such as loans to business firms for equipment and inventory, real estate loans to people purchasing homes, and loans for automobiles. Sorry, I already said all that. Providing miscellaneous services. Sometimes banks are called full-service banks. At a bank, you can get a safe deposit box, traveler's checks, cashier's checks, certified checks, debit and credit cards, and wire transfers to virtually anywhere in the world. The trust department of a commercial bank assists customers in preparing wills and establishing trust accounts to provide for the family's needs after the death of a client. For the business customer, banks assist in developing savings, investment, pension plans for employees, and to take care of their payroll and other accounting needs. I don't really have another good spot to put this information, but you do need to know about him. Milton Friedman. He was known as basically the leader of the Chicago School of Economics, and he was a major spokesman for the monetarist approach. You say, Mr. Merrill, what is the monetarist approach? Well, guess what? I've got a definition for you. The monetarist approach is the belief that the stability of the economy depended on the supply of money in circulation. Once you have that written down, I want you to turn your books to page 199, and I want you to read the box about Milton Friedman. Once you have finished that box, we'll actually be done for the day. So hope you all have a good rest of the day. Hope you enjoy your weekend. Remember, please turn in your Chapter 9 test as well as your one homework assignment that was assigned this week. Hope you all have a good rest of the day. Enjoy your weekend. Be good, do good. Bye.